Story 1. In a second, a chance to redo everything up until now. I could avoid so many mistakes, learn to play an instrument, and go back to that sweet time period where climbing trees was still cool. That would be nice. Story 2. Nope. 7-year-old me is just 7-year-old me. Her innocence and naivety should stay that way, because if I were to go back to that age with my current consciousness, all those memories of exploration and discovery would go to waste. I would lose that sense of nostalgia if that happened. Sure, it would be fun to enjoy being a kid again, but not if I had this present awareness. I would probably say yes if I could go back without it, or if I could experience it for just one day without affecting the future. The age I would really like to go back to with my current consciousness is 16. My 16-year-old self didn't truly enjoy her teenage years and had a selfish, I am miserable kind of mindset. Those are the years I am willing to revisit because my father was still alive back then, and our life was still somewhat stable before the coronavirus disease 2019 started. Story 3. Absolutely not, because I wouldn't have my children. Their mother was not a very nice person, and I may try to avoid her, thus not having my 2 oldest children. It is not worth it. Story 4. Damn right I would. I am old enough that I could easily buy bitcoins for spare change and turn myself into a very, very rich person. That is not even considering any other much harder to implement changes. Story 5. Yes, of course, if there is an opportunity, why not? I will list all cryptocurrencies that have been successful at this time and invest money there. Present, I am already rich. Story 6. These threads just basically separate the people who have children versus the folks with nothing to lose. If you have children, or even just people you love now, there is no guarantee you will get them back. You are essentially abandoning them. Story 7. In a heartbeat. The opportunity to live my life over again, to be young and healthy once more, to live without depression, to see my mother again, and to be able to do things differently after learning from my mistakes would be wonderful. Having to be beaten by my father again would be a significant downside, as with some other things like not having any freedom or independence for a while. However, on balance, I could endure it as the price of a second chance at life. Story 8. Yes, I would. I would avoid the errand my parents sent me on that led to me being sexually assaulted and putting a wall up for protection. I am 63 now. It is still there. Story 9. Not only would I, it is actually my biggest fantasy. A lot of fundamental problems I have started pretty early in my life. Some were my fault and some were not. I would love the opportunity to avoid tragedy and take a different path. Story 10. No, because it would change the course of my life and I would not have the wife and children I currently love. Story 11. It would definitely be a difficult decision. On one hand, knowing so many outcomes and so many things means possibly being able to change things for the better for myself and, if successful, for many other people. On the other hand, once some of those changes are made, there would be a ripple effect and many things I do not want changed could change. For example, even if I were to place myself in the same place at the same time as I was originally when I met my spouse, there is no guarantee they would have responded in the same way this time around. Furthermore, there would be no guarantee that they would grow up to be the same person as before. And even if they did, and we were to eventually marry, there is no guarantee our children would be the same children we have now. Such a loss of the family I love and care for would be beyond devastating. I would miss them. I would miss them so much. Would it be worth it to survive this place with them gone? No, I do not think it would be. So it is not really a difficult decision at all. No, I would not travel back in time. Story 12. No, I would let 7-year-old me be a naive kid because she only has a few years left before her mom leaves, and she has to be a mom to her younger siblings. Story 13. Yes. I would be a guitar prodigy, a Bitcoin billionaire, and a real estate mogul by my 20s. I would be one of those gifted kids they try to put into college at 12 years old. I would prevent Donald Trump from ever taking office. I would send my images to Governor Little and have him arrested. I would call out Kim Kardashian publicly and prevent her from ever getting famous. I would literally save the world. Story 14. No, because people would not take you seriously enough as a 7-year-old to do anything important. That would be a special kind of hell to be gifted with that much wisdom and not be able to do anything with it or induce any sort of change. Story 15. It could be fun to change some things, but who knows what terrible consequences might follow. And who would actually listen to a 7-year-old? Story 16. Yes, I could relive my life, knowing when and where I could meet my current partner, get my current cat, and do some things differently knowing I would eventually get there with them, or have more time with them. I wish I had spent my 20s with my boyfriend. I spent that time with the wrong people, and I would give so much for more time with my boyfriend. I didn't know I could love someone so much until I met him. Story 17. I would tell her to love herself first, the winning lottery numbers, because times get tough when her mom does. To tell when she's being bullied and not suffer years of torture alone, and also she has obsessive-compulsive disorder and it is treatable. Story 18. No. But if I could be 10 instead, yes. Things were a lot more peaceful from then onwards. Apart from the obvious investment ideas, I would tell myself not to listen to my high school art teacher. I would also not be so afraid to try. I would have the courage to ask out that boy I had a crush on when I was 16, instead of when I was 24 and we were both divorced and he had children. I wouldn't trade him for anything, though. Story 19. No, I currently am 32. I found the love of my life only 3 years ago, and since then I am so happy. Being 7 again would mean I would have to wait 22 years to meet her again. Plus, there would be the possibility that my life would not turn out like it did, so it is not guaranteed to get together again. Forget the bitcoins, fame, and all the money in the world I could get through this. Nothing in this world would be worth risking meeting her again. Story 20. The answer is going to depend on whether or not somebody has children. If they do, you are asking if they would choose to have different children, and mostly that is going to be a resounding no. If they do not have children, it depends on how much luck they have had in life. I would do it. I would just encourage my parents to invest in Apple at key points. I was 7 years old in 1986, so there was plenty of time to get them to save up to invest in Apple before the next reveal, where Apple bought the company and brought Steve Jobs back, which was before the release of the 1998 iMac. The iPod launch and the iPhone launch would all be great times to be an Apple shareholder. Additionally, there was the Google initial public offering. And of course, there is Bitcoin. Forget sports betting and Back to the Future too. Story 21. Sounds awesome. But I love my life and my kids. I wouldn't want to change that. I wouldn't want more money from an investment over the children I have now. Story 22. No, I lost my husband last year. I am 44 years old. I would make different choices that would make me appreciate the children we have as they are, and I will always miss him. I do not know if I would choose to live alone or seek another love to avoid this pain, or try to convince him earlier that we were meant to be and still miss our children because the time was right when we came together. Story 23. I am imagining going through my teenage years with knowledge of my food allergies, the financial decisions I would avoid, the personal mistakes I have made. 1,000 times yes. Story 24. No, I would miss my children and be in constant fear that a small deviation from my previous path would cause them to never exist. It would be akin to having them die. I would live the rest of my life with the knowledge of their existence yet never see them again. Story 25. A couple of years ago, I felt like my answer to these questions was mostly yes. Although 7 is pretty young, to be honest, this one might have been no even back then. But now I have children, and the odds of me having the same child are virtually nil. I could probably go back in time and still end up with my wife while also improving my life in other ways, but the odds that the same sperm and same egg meet up and create the same baby in the same way are practically impossible. And I don't know if the things I think I would improve on would be worth ending up with different child, or if it would be too painful to miss the children I have now. Story 26. I would, because if I had my current consciousness, I still have the joy of discovery and adventure from my childhood in my heart. I will never lose that. The chance to redo some regrets and stand up more when I should have would definitely make me do it. Story 27. Yes. But the biggest thing I would do is hug my dad. You can take away my knowledge of future events after that. I would be done. Story 28. For financial reasons, I want to say yes. But for the sake of my life experience and what I have learned, I would have to say no. Story 29. As good as that would be, I would change too much and so won't end up where I am. It's not the best, However, I am in a good place with the choices I did have. So no. Story 30, yes, absolutely. I had and have a wonderful life, but being able to fix a few minor things I did and said would be great. I would not change anything major like my wife, but I would appreciate her more and make sure she knew it every second. I would never lash out with a hurtful word in an argument. I would do my best to avoid those arguments and make life easier, because I know everything turns out okay. Story 31. Skip a couple of school years as a gifted student, make a fortune with even my limited memory of sports events, Biff Tannen style as soon as I am 18 while finishing college. Then stocks. Then cryptocurrency. Live a life of discreet luxury in some rich European country, probably Switzerland. Advise my wealthy friends on future economic and political trends, without overdoing it, more analyst than psychic, and be always right. Finance the right political careers. Sponsor my favorite artists. Maybe even a few surprise blockbusters. Mr. Tarantino, loved your script and would like to finance it. Almost too easy. Story 32, 100%, I would. Although I know it just means I am going to make new regrets and some things would get repetitive and boring because I have been through them already. But yes, I would. I actually think of it a lot. Story 33. Yes. But I came here to add the Tom T. Hall lyric. Ain't no sense wanting to live my life over. I would find different ways to make those mistakes again. Story 34. Of course, I would get a shot at setting the timeline straight on the 28th of May 2016. I would even have 20 days to prevent September 11th, but as a 7-year-old Eastern European kid, I am not sure that is very realistic. I would also have to be careful not to jeopardize my future investment plans that would most definitely make me rich beyond my imagination. Story 35. Who wouldn't? I could meet my wife earlier, avoid a lot of mistakes, and even with no information about the economy, just buy up Bitcoin as much as I can when it launches to be set for life. Story 36. Absolutely. I would have the opportunity to fix all the mistakes I made and improve my past, present, and future. Story 37. Absolutely. If respawn or reincarnation turns out to be a reality, keeping my memories would truly be my only request. Story 38. Being able to see both my parents and other family members in decent health would be a big draw. The financial matters were an afterthought. Plus, the 80s and 90s were all right at that age. Story 39. I am not sure I would have the patience to listen to my parents again. I would most likely turn into a runaway and be the most jaded 7-year-old on earth. Story 40. What you're asking is basically, would I throw away my entire life and everything I've built to start again with all that I know now? And the answer to that is no. There's no way I'd ever get what I have now back. I don't even remember the choices I made at that age that led me to where I am now. I'm happily married. If I set out to meet my wife again and tried to get that relationship back, it wouldn't happen the way it did. It probably wouldn't happen at all. I vowed to be with my wife till death do us part, to stick with her through thick and thin. What kind of awful husband would I be if I deliberately abandoned her and prevented our relationship from ever happening? Now, I'm not taking the new Game Plus deal. Story 41, all the way back to 7, absolutely not. As much as there are plenty of things I would do differently, there is too much butterfly effect, and I would not want to miss the small number of things I did enjoy about my tween and teen years. If it were to go back to age 18, I would take that in a heartbeat. Story 42. On one hand, yes, on the other hand, I do not want to re-experience walking into a robbery of my apartment. Maybe if I were 10, then I would take the deal. Story 43. If you can assure me that I will still make the same friends I have now, because otherwise I will miss having them in my life. Story 44. I used to think I would go back if I could and correct a lot of mistakes I have made and try harder in school to get myself into a better career, but I do not want to go back for nothing anymore. I have had amazing experiences, and I have someone special who means the world to me. If going back means that my new life leads me in a different direction than the meaningful experiences I have had and meeting the person I love, then I do not want to go back. Story 45. I know many of life's secrets, have learned many lessons, and I would know where to invest early on. Additionally, I would prevent a few debilitating injuries. Story 46. No, we have a lot of disposable income now. Back then, we were just living paycheck to paycheck. I wouldn't be able to afford a lot of things I like right now. Story 47. Absolutely not. I had a rough childhood, and as much as I would like to tell my younger self that things get better, and that I do a lot better than I ever expected, I would not relive that for anything. I have thought about this for years, but I have become a better human being than I ever anticipated. I have made a few of my dreams come true, and I would not risk any of that. Not after what it took to get here. Story 48. No, because I would still be a powerless child living in a home with an abusive alcoholic parent. Knowing that was the situation would not have changed the family dynamics. I would never want to relive my childhood. Story 49. The ability to talk back to school bullies with my 39-year-old levels of intelligence, confidence, and sarcasm would be worth it alone. Story 50. Hell yes. I was an awkward kid who did not relate well to other kids. This time around, I would again be unable to relate to other kids but would be able to contextualize it instead of being a head case. Story 51. I would. While I would make investments and study more, I would spend more time with my grandparents and little sister while they are still alive. The memories would carry me further than the monetary value by far. Story 52. That's a tough one. I want to say yes, but then I ask myself, would I still meet my wife and have the same kids? Would my life be better or worse? How would my world change? Tough question. Story 53. Who wouldn't? If your life was bad, you could correct some things. If it was good, you could relive it again. I think it would be more fun to hear people who wouldn't and why. Story 54. I am not sure if I could. I do not want to end up not changing the past and miss out on meeting my wife or having children. Even if I do end up having children again, not seeing my boys for 22 years would be too much. Story 55. I'd love to see the 1990s again with my current knowledge. I would like to see how things used to be and appreciate them more. Probably not that trip to New York, though. Story 56. If I was guaranteed to remember and be able to correct the mistakes I made in life, yes. I would enjoy my childhood because I would have the knowledge of what adulthood is like. Not that I do not enjoy a lot of parts of it, but I would take advantage of the free time and leisure I had then. I would also know more about who I am, what is important in life, and about useful knowledge and skills earlier so I could improve my life a lot earlier than my 20s, 30s, and 40s. Story 57. At 7, we experience the universe as a 7-year-old, as it should be. If we experience it with older consciousness, we bring a lifetime of assumptions that contaminate the experience. Story 58. No, my childhood was awful and I have no desire to relive any aspect of it. Would it be cool to be able to do things differently? Yes, of course it would. But you couldn't pay me to relive my childhood. I enjoy being an adult who can make their own choices and feel safe and protected at home. Story 59. Probably not 7 because of how little control over my life I had at that age. Sure, I would get better grades at school and maybe get a scholarship to college. But I would still be an outcast for being the nerdy white kid in an all-black school. And I would be grounded all the time for swearing a lot. Story 60. No, I made so many mistakes as a child, but all of them made me who I am today. If I had corrected all of those things, I might not have met my wife, she might not have married me, and my children would absolutely cease to exist. I would not be able to live with the memory of them without them. Story 61. I would tell my dad that if he marries her, he will never see us again and his whole life will fall to pieces. Story 62. Nah, I was blissfully unaware of many things because I was a kid. I wouldn't mind going back to being 21 when I had just freshly moved to another country. Now, with more experience and knowledge, I know I could do much better and set myself up for a better future. Maybe skip a few bad choices but still end up where I am. Story 63. No, I could fix some mistakes, but those mistakes led to me being here, and I am pretty happy with where I am now. Story 64. It depends. If it was for a set period of time and then I return to now with everything the same, then yes, I would like to relive a bit of my childhood. If I had to stay there and do the whole thing over, then no. I would be too worried about making mistakes and not ending up with my partner, and subsequently never having my two little girls. Story 65. Definitely not. Dealing with my parents was difficult enough. And having no internet access for most of my childhood, you could not pay me to do that. I was bored out of my mind the first time. Trying again would not be any better. Story 66. Absolutely, I would. I would communicate resistance and resilience, and if people do not respect your autonomy, sometimes you may feel the urge to physically confront them. Yes, violence is not the answer, but knowing my personality and certain circumstances, I understand that my words may not always be sufficient. Story 67. I thought about this. I would be quite a mature 7-year-old. With my past, there are wrongs I wish I could take back. But with a 30-year-old's mentality, would I have the same friends? My life would definitely not play out the same way as it did back then. But I guess I could make it better and cherish the things I took for granted when I was young. I could also win a ton of bets if everything else practically played out the same. Story 68. Absolutely not. There is no way a 7-year-old me could handle what I know. I would have a complete breakdown, or people would think I am crazy for accidentally referencing things that have not happened yet. Story 69. In a heartbeat, I would love to relive the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. I graduated high school in 1991. The only thing that would be difficult is knowing when loved ones are going to die. Story 70. Absolutely. It would be an absolute hoot. I would make my overachieving older brother look like a complete fool. That would be hilarious. Also, I would write a load of fan letters to try and save the lives of as many celebrities as I could who went before their time. Freddie Mercury. Just urge him to cover up before he cuddles up and he would be fine. Bill Hicks, an oncologist a few years early. Roy Orbison, cardiologist ahead of time. He was a major loss to the traveling Wilburys. Kenny Everett, same advice as Freddie. If I worked quickly enough, I might be able to save Isaac Asimov, just to either delay his heart surgery or use blood from family members instead of some random person. Sadly, it was 1983 when it happened, so I would be cutting it close. I would utterly destroy all my childhood bullies, both physically and emotionally. I would try to save my father, or at least give him advice that might protect him or prolong his life. If nothing else, I would get 12 years to spend with him again. I would totally go down a different career path. I would have gone into computing instead of biology. However, I would wait until I was 18, then take out a very detailed patent on the use of clustered, regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats and CRISPR-associated protein 9 gene editing technology, get revoltingly rich off the proceeds, and snag a Nobel Prize. I would also make some sensible investments or bets. And I would date a lot during high school. I would also find someone who treats me with care, love, and respect. Story 71. Nope. I have already been through all that difficult experience once. I am not sure I would survive a second time, including bullying, health issues, and financial problems. Story 72. Yeah, but it wouldn't be all roses. When you are 7, you have no autonomy. However, my 52-year-old mind would not take well to constantly being told what to do, that I have no opinion, and that I am not taken seriously, etc. I would just do it to excel in the rest of school and create my own opportunities for the future. Story 73. I would pass school and have my parents set up some investments for me at my direction. I would be very able to persuade them at my 7-year age by having them watch stocks until I can do my own investing in 11 years' time. Story 74. Yes, I know the outcome for the next 40 Super Bowls. I am aware of the invention of the World Wide Web and the opportunities to invest in companies like Yahoo, eBay, Google, and Amazon. Story 75. I would under specific conditions. My wife gets the same deal. A guarantee that my children will be reborn when the time comes. If I cannot get those, then no thanks. Story 76. If I had to go through school again, then absolutely not. There is no way in the world that I would ever go back. Story 77. Yeah, I would spend more time with my grandparents. I would choose to attend a traditional college, not because I think I would be suited for it, but to try and prevent my friend from doing something dangerous off a balcony at a party. Story 78. Need more context. Do I get to come back? Am I replacing my 7-year-old self and living life all over again? Am I just there to observe my younger self in my current adult form? Story 79. Absolutely. The first thing I would do is get down to Kennedy Space Center to see an Apollo moon launch firsthand. Story 80. Ages from birth to around 9 years old were tough years for me. I don't know if I would like to go back there, but if I could go back to when I was 12 years old, I would definitely do it. Story 81. How long am I staying? Because if it is a permanent thing, I would consider ending my life. I am 55 and so exhausted right now, and the thought of having to live all that additional time again, even if completely different choices are made, is unappealing. Story 82. Depends on how long I am staying. For a few days out of interest? Sure. Just doing my life over again? No chance. This would ruin you mentally. The concept of an adult in the body of a child is disturbing, and you would probably end up locked up somewhere. In the least dramatic scenario, you would just become miserable. Childhood only works because you are a child. You think it is all carefree, but wait until you have an 8 p.m. bedtime strictly enforced, and your biggest mental stimulation is doing your times tables on repeat. If you would not want to, as an adult, be exclusively friends with 7-year-olds, then you do not want to do a mental time travel either. Story 83. Absolutely not. It sounds like it would be absolute torture to be in a child's body but with an adult's memories, desires, experiences, fears, and so on. Story 84. Oh no, 7-year-old me doesn't need to be as depressed and angry as I am these days. Let baby Bitsy enjoy her My Little Ponies and Cabbage Patch Kids without understanding that extremists are taking over. Story 85. In a heartbeat. If anything, just to go through the 80s again and then become the richest investor of all time. Story 86. No, I would never travel back prior to the birth of my children, as no improvement in any other aspect of my life would compensate for the absence of them. 1 second after the birth of the youngest, in a flash. I would take having to put up with the misery of my school years, the initial period of happiness, and the long slide into depression and despair of my marriage up to that point for just long enough for the children to make it worthwhile. Then I would use my knowledge to make some significantly different decisions and make them sooner to fix everything from that point onward. Starting from age 7 and with all that knowledge, I may have been able to somehow get my grandfather treated before the heart attacks that killed him. Maybe not. And that's almost enough. I would almost certainly have experienced less bullying and loneliness throughout school due to being far better at masking my autistic traits and being able to interact socially at a higher level earlier. I could obviously make huge material gains by exploiting the knowledge of the future, and I could avoid ever getting involved with the woman who became my wife and the years of struggle dealing with her mental illness, not her fault, and her malicious, abusive nature, definitely her fault. Even when sane, she is an objectively awful person once she drops the facade. But that would cost me my son and daughter, and nothing is worth that loss. Story 87. Absolutely. But I do not think I remember enough about my past life to change my present life in the future. Story 88. I would invest in Bitcoin, avoid many mistakes, and start building skills from an early age. Additionally, I would get a second chance to spend time with loved ones who are no longer here. Yes, going through school again would be challenging, but honestly, the payoff would be worth it. Story 89. Not yet, maybe when I am old and about to die. It would be nearly impossible to end up with the same kids. I would like to see them grow up. Story 90. No, I would be too scared that I would avoid the mistakes that led me to having the amazing children I have. Story 91. Yes, even if I cannot convince anyone that I know enough, I have sufficient knowledge to earn a significant amount of money and make changes in certain areas. Story 92. If it was somehow guaranteed my little brother would still be born, then absolutely. Even barring lottery or Bitcoin exploits, there are so many mistakes in my life that I could fix. Years wasted as a shut-in not in education, employment, or training, I could be using to actually better my life. Story 93. Yes, I have often thought about this. It would really put past events into perspective. I also believe I would handle some individuals differently. Story 94. Without a doubt. It would be disappointing to know how the upcoming games, books, and movies end, but I would become a millionaire through investments and betting. Story 95. To all the older folks like myself, do you realize that you would have a terrible time relating to anybody? Think about it. Imagine talking to 7-year-olds as equals. You would be bored out of your mind because you couldn't relate to any of your peers. This could be nightmare fuel, as you would feel incredibly lonely. It's like you can't even relate to young adults. Also, your body is still that of a child. I don't know. That seems like a questionable offer. Story 96. A do-over? Yes, please. I could appreciate my youthful energy while I still had it. Though it would be frustrating having to wait several years just to get a dial-up internet connection. Story 97. Remember, if you have children, you are condemning them to non-existence, as there is essentially a 0% chance you can recreate them. Story 98. There was a lot of suffering all this time, so the idea of being able to change things is tempting. But I think I could do better in adult life. Or just be a bitter and anxious child trying to change things that are not within my power. Story 99. On one hand, having all my current knowledge and awareness as a 7-year-old would be incredible. I could make better choices, avoid mistakes, and maybe even set myself up for an easier future. But on the other hand, knowing everything too soon might take away the fun of growing up naturally. Would I still enjoy childhood? Or would I just feel trapped, waiting for my real life to catch up? Also, how strange would it be to sit in 2nd grade with the mind of an adult? It is a tempting idea, but I am not sure I would want to relive everything with full awareness. Story 100. I would. I had a good childhood, but I could bring out the best in myself if I went back. I would not play as many games, not quit sports, not do drugs or smoke cigarettes at age 9, stay with a better group of friends, and go out more often when invited. I messed up my high school years by constantly declining invitations to parties. I would also really love to meet my old dogs again. Story 101. This is effectively a would you endure, insert type of torture here, for £1 billion? Question. It would be absolutely appalling to surrender all your independence for a decade and more. Imagine going back to having a bedtime, being unable to cook for yourself, and having your opinions dismissed out of hand even for a full year. Imagine having to wait 11 years to go for a pint legally. And for all the cryptocurrency you can buy, imagine the reality of social development. You absolutely could not have teenage boyfriends or girlfriends when you have the consciousness of an adult. Even having friends would be a stretch, as you would struggle to keep sane if your only outlet for humor was children. Learning would be difficult too, as the steps you would need to pass through would be incompatible with your ability. You would likely excel initially and then be placed on a special advanced program to keep you from getting bored, then eventually hit a massive wall where advanced academics move too fast for you, and you rapidly slowed down to your normal level. This probably raises massive alarms to teachers and parents who panic and try all sorts of things to unlock a genius they hope you have, but it was actually just your 35-year-old self being better at math than a 7-year-old and little else. Story 102. Absolutely not. I am forever grateful I don't remember most of it, but the idea of going through it all again while being aware, I don't think I could do it. Story 103. I would make a few predictions based on things I have no control over to gain recognition for my insights and foresight. Like the 7-year-old who predicted the September 11th attacks with pinpoint accuracy, or that Charles M. Schultz would die on February 13, 2000. These predictions are clearly going to receive some press coverage. I aim to consistently predict global events until I am old enough that people will place their faith in me. At that point, I can provide warnings about the current economic climate, COVID-19, the Ukraine and Russia conflict, the Manchester bombings, Donald Trump, and others from a position where I can affect actual change. Story 104. No, because what if I do something different that alters the timeline and I never meet my husband or have my children? They are literally the best things in my entire life, and I like to think my difficult childhood is what makes me a good parent and wife. Story 105. Definitely, I would help my mother more. I did not understand then what she was going through, but now I do. Story 106. It sounds great, but retaining my current consciousness would be problematic. The thought of memories that I currently have would be haunting to my 7-year-old mental health. Imagine having the memories of children, pets, friends, and others that I would never again be able to recreate. If I could return to being 7 years old without the retention of consciousness, I would be in favor of it. Story 107. It is important to remember that if anyone goes back in time in this manner, it would be impossible to have the same children that they currently have in this moment. There are millions of sperm, all with their unique genetics, attempting to fertilize that egg, so changing the moment of conception, even by a fraction of a second, will guarantee a different outcome. Story 108. Do I get to bring a cheat sheet, and how long do I have to prepare? Because I love my child, but I couldn't tell you the exact date that I started talking to her father. I absolutely wouldn't do it if there is a chance that I might miss my opportunity to create her. Story 109. No, I love my wife and my child, and while I could maybe live life over again and find my wife again, I could never have my same child. Story 110. I was very ill at that age, so no. I wouldn't want to put the worries of an adult onto that child who has yet to experience so many things. I would love, though, to revisit bonfire night at my grandparents' house in the mid-1990s. I don't think I realized at the time just how much I loved it. I would do that one more time in a heartbeat. I would see my grandmother fussing over the food and give my grandfather a hug. Story 111. No. My childhood was incredibly traumatic. The older I get, the better my life becomes. The quality of my life has seen a continuous upward trajectory since my difficult childhood. Story 112. Absolutely. Being 7 years old with the intellect of a 29-year-old would make school a breeze up until high school. Pre-calculus can still be difficult. Along with that, I was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder at 6, anxiety and autism spectrum disorder at 16. I could address things early on. Story 113. Yes, it is odd, but a life redo would be amazing. This time I would not use drugs and save myself from 15 years of pain. Story 114. I'm torn. I would love to go back to do a reset to try to not have to endure as much less than stellar parenting from my living parent. But then again, I wouldn't be the person I am now, and I wouldn't have the wife and kids I have now. Story 115. 100% yes. I made my first and biggest mistake when I was 9, so knowing I could stop that from happening would be a godsend. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.